Welcome to Real Estate Exposed, helping people in San Diego buy, sell, and refinance their biggest investment, delivering you timely truths, exposing important issues, and helping you get into the right home. Here are your hosts, real estate expert Daniel Beer, top-ranked professional by sales volume at one of San Diego's largest brokerages, and his mortgage partner, Todd Pianin, with over $2 billion in funded loans.
Welcome back to the show. This is Real Estate Exposed right here on News Radio 600 KOGO. I'm Daniel Beer with Todd Pianin, Home Street Bank. What's up, Todd?
Not much, my brother. Happy Sunday to you.
Thank you. And Daniel Beer, the Daniel Beer Group at Windermere. So it is a good Sunday, isn't it, Todd?
It is a great Sunday. And Todd Pianin from Home Street Bank. You can find us at homestreetbank.com/tpianin. And you can also find Dan and I on Facebook for Real Estate Exposed. And we have a podcast, Dan, on iTunes, which I'm super pumped about, which I know you're not. You think it's a non-event. But I do think it's cool because, you know, the show is on iTunes. It is growing. People are subscribing to it. And the remarks and the comments and the messages that we're getting, whether on email, phone calls, or on Facebook, from listeners have been great. And meeting our listeners at our home selling workshops, which we will be talking about over the course of today's show. It's a free event that we're going to be holding in the month of February. And there's going to be a time and location convenient to you. You'll want to stay tuned to get more details on how you can get your free tickets to the home selling workshops. But first, let's check out what's going on in the world, Todd. So what do you think, Dan, about your favorite candidate boycotting the debate on Thursday?
I mean, I've stopped thinking anything. I've stopped thinking much of anything. You know, it's certainly going to be interesting, and I'm going to tune in and pay a lot of attention when it's time to see how the votes start coming in with Iowa coming and so on. That's going to be highly interesting.
He's going to win Iowa.
The rest of it is shenanigans.
Yeah, but do you understand what's going on right now in the political landscape, Dan? We've got Bernie Sanders, who's actually looking like he's taking the lead over Hillary Trump.
He's looked sharp lately.
He's looked sharp. He looks like he's going to win Iowa and New Hampshire. You got Donald Trump, who's crushing in Iowa and New Hampshire based on latest polls. Didn't even go to the debate on Thursday because he was not happy with Megyn Kelly. I don't know if I can say that on the air, but it's been all over the media. And he did a charity benefit on Thursday in lieu of going to the debate for wounded warriors because because as he says, the veterans love him. And then you got
as he says,
I
love that.
Yeah,
a lot of people love him, as he says.
And now you got Michael Bloomberg talking about coming into the race as an independent because of what's going on.
I like that twist.
You like that twist, but okay, you like that twist. But what if just play this out with me for 1 second?
Yes, sir.
What if Bloomberg and Trump split the vote and we end up with Bernie Sanders as our president?
I don't like the story anymore.
Yeah,
I don't like that twist. I don't like that twist quite as much as I did a moment ago.
That scares the heck out of me. I mean, this guy's a pure socialist. This guy is. I mean,
who do you think is friendliest to the equity markets and the real estate market?
I think Trump. I do think Trump. I think Cruz. I think Cruz will do okay. I also think Rubio would do okay. I mean, I think any of those three candidates we will have a really, really big turnaround in the equity environment and the real estate environment. I mean, all three of them have said that they're going to repeal Dodd-Frank, which if they repeal Dodd-Frank, that's a game changer in the mortgage industry.
You'd be invited to the party that I would throw at my house.
I would host the party at your house is what I would really do. So any three of them, I mean, I just think that, all the news that's coming out about Hillary and, what potentially could happen, but this whole Bloomberg thing scares the heck out of me. The whole Biden situation that you and I talked about last week, he could get actually nominated at the Democratic convention if they file charges against Hillary, scares the heck out of me too. I mean, you just don't know what's going to happen. I mean, it's definitely a circus, Dan, and I would definitely agree with you, but I think that Trump not going to the debate pretty much tells you that he knows he has Iowa and New Hampshire tied up. And everybody loves him per what he says. Where
I am looking forward to seeing him go to is on the Bill O'Reilly show. So he's scheduled to now be on The Factor. He looks like he's going to actually be a guest on O'Reilly. That will be entertaining.
Yes.
And that's something
he's been on before. He's been on multiple times before.
I'm looking forward to this particular round. I'm looking forward to seeing especially in the light of everything going on with like what we just discussed, with Iowa coming, with this boycott of the debate coming, with Sanders making grounds.
Right.
That is a show that I'm going to personally tune into.
This is the best reality television that I think we've seen in a long time. I mean, in the political arena.
But it is important that we stay cognizant of, who's going to be the biggest advocate of our economy, and not a fake economy, not a propped up economy based on, government manipulation, but who is going to let the free market rule, who is going to allow supply and demand dictate terms, dictate pricing, dictate interest rates, dictate everything out. That's what I want to know, because ultimately that's the only way that we're going to grow healthy in the long term. And I do want to make sure that interest rate, homeowner interest rate deduction, interest rate tax deduction stays. That is important.
I think that's important too. I also think that you want a candidate that's really big on repatriating the money that's overseas. I mean, you look at how much Qualcomm and Apple and all these big companies have overseas. It's amazing. The other thing I want to talk about though, Dan, is I don't know if you saw the numbers, but December's El Nino numbers were the highest record rainfall for the last 3 El Ninos.
But the biggest is coming, right? The biggest is coming in February and in March.
That's what they're saying. They're saying February and March. We saw 5.88 inches of rain in December, and it caused massive flooding, and it caused all kinds of craziness in our, here in San Diego. But what they're saying is February and March are going to be over 8+ inches of rain in February and March each month, which blows away the 2 previous El Ninos by at least 2 inches.
But here's what I love about it, because you're listening to Real Estate Exposed right here on News Radio 600.
We're talking about rain.
But here's what I love, because this is Real Estate Exposed. Let's expose the truth to this myth. We had the biggest January rainfall, and everybody out there, or so many, I should say, so many people that are just making home selling decisions based on assumption, based on just what they're told by any regular old agent that they might speak to, wherever that may be, are holding their property off the market and waiting for the sunny, seller season, whenever it comes down the line in the summer. Here's the truth, though. Here's what happened. Our home sellers took advantage of the fact that inventory is horrendously low. There are so few homes out there for sale. Look around. Just step outside. Go outside. Look up and down your street. You won't see very many home signs. Okay, you won't see very many for sale signs.
Unless you're in my neighborhood.
Unless you're in Todd's neighborhood. It's small. It's a little bit of an anomaly.
Yeah, it's a funny story.
But seriously, step outside. Take a look up and down the street. Nobody's selling their home, but there are people in those homes having discussions with each other and saying, "Sweetheart, let's sell the property, let's sell our home, let's move, but let's wait for the summer after all this rain."
Right.
Now, and so tying this back to the rain, here's the truth: is just my little old team, just us, Daniel Beer Group at Windermere. The Daniel Beer Group, we sold 18 homes. We put 18 homes under contract year to date, successful 5-day blitz implementations, successfully driving the market to the property and creating a negotiating advantage for our sellers, because what we understand is that there is still very much active demand out there, but there aren't enough home sellers taking advantage of the environment. So we sold 18 homes in the month of January. That's our best month ever. And heading into February and March, I can't wait to take further advantage of it.
I mean, I'm excited. I mean, I can't say anything more. I'm excited too. I mean, Taisha and I are having, February is going to be our best closing month I think we've had in about 5 years. Right now on the books, your little secret, I think, has gotten out that Home Street Bank is a good place to go, because we have over 18 closings happening in February. I mean, and just so you guys have an understanding, the average mortgage banker does like maybe 2 or 3 loans a month. Taisha and I are going to close at least 18 in the month. The month's not even, we always pick up a couple deals that have to close within the month all the time. So it's, I mean, you're right, Dan, we're feeling it, but I also think the difference is, and I have to say this is that we work, meaning that your team works and my team works. We're constantly available for our clients. We're constantly out there. We're constantly talking to people, and it's like.
And we're students of the market, and we're students of strategy in terms of how to best give our clients the strategy needed to succeed in today's market environment, whether they're buying or selling. And speaking of which, and that's what we're going to discuss here coming up next.
Can't wait.
How does supply and demand factor in? And what do you need to know about today's supply and demand environment so that you can best take advantage of the home buying and home selling environment? The phone number to call, by the way, if you want to connect with us or if you want free tickets to the home selling workshops, is 800-676-2420. Those are coming up here in February. 800-676-2420. We're going to have that coming up for you next.
Welcome back to KOGO 600. Real Estate Exposed with Dan Beer from the Dan Beer Group and Todd Pianin from Home Street Bank. Dan, you are leading us out before the break and talking about buying and selling and what's going on in the marketplace.
Supply and demand and its role. So here's, especially this time of year, even without all the El Nino rains, every year this time of year, we have the question, and we sit down with home sellers at their homes, and they tell us, we're waiting for, we want to move, we're trying to get to Phoenix, we need to get somewhere, we need to go here, we don't like our payment anymore, we want to get out of the house.
Life event, right?
Different life events, yet we're going to wait for April, for May, for June. And invariably, and what few agents ask, they just, the question is why? And they say, well, that's the home selling season, isn't it? That's when people buy homes.
Right.
So we're putting this myth to bed, and we're going to look at it here just from the simple standpoint of what you learn at your Econ 101 class. The first thing you learn in an Econ 101 class isn't go check the calendar and see what month it is. Isn't, make sure you're in the second, third, fourth quarter or second or third quarter of the year.
Right.
They don't talk about months. They don't talk about January versus June. They don't talk about February versus July. What they talk about is, in very simple terms, supply and demand. And it's amazing, and there's just so little education out there for people to make the right decision. And it works on both sides of the aisle, if you're buying or if you're selling. Looking at it, if you're buying.
Well, can I ask a question, Dan? I heard you on the phone with a client the other day, and you were talking to the client, and I thought this was interesting because I was in an event in your neighborhood on Saturday. They brought snow in, so I took Jake, my son, and we went and hung out and did the snow day deal or whatever. And so it was cool. I was talking to one of the homeowners there, and he was talking about putting his house in the market and buying a bigger property. And of course, I pumped you up, but that's off the record. But anyway, he said, well, we're thinking about want to do it in like spring or summer, and I'm like, well, you're really not. It's supply and demand. Right now, there's very little supply in the Del Sur area. And, he's like, well, I'm concerned about, selling my home but not having a place to buy. Mm-hmm. So that was one of his concerns. But then I also heard you on the phone when we were walking into the studio, I think it was like last week or the week before, and you said to a client, you actually make your money on the buy, not on the sell. Mm-hmm. So can you kind of explain that a little bit? Because I couldn't really explain that to this client that well. I was trying to explain to him because he was worried about overpaying in the summertime or having more house in the market. And I'm like, you really need to talk to Dan, get in front of, the whole thing. But
everything is supply and demand.
Right.
So our entire home selling strategy, okay, let's just talk when we're representing a seller. It's the entire 5-day blitz program. Everything we do, every detail that we actually share with you at our home selling workshops, it's all about generating the psychology of extreme demand for very little supply. That's when we're representing a seller. Okay, that's the goal. The goal is to create a perception of more people wanting the home than can buy it. Right, only one's going to buy it. So we want to provide create an environment and a perception of extreme demand for little supply.
The Apple Pencil, for example, the iPad, people lining up, for that kind of stuff. I get it.
And it's the same thing when we're representing a buyer, and the same thing can be done in the same environment, by the way. Even now, where factually there is little inventory, but there are advantages that buyers right now are enjoying, which aren't going to stick around. So we'll talk about those here in a moment too. So when we're representing a buyer right now, it's the same thing, but in the opposite direction. When we're negotiating for a buyer, it's about creating the perception to the seller of more supply out there that this particular buyer can go after, and and this seller should recognize that they're not the only seller in town. And so the language we use with that seller is one where we need to make them aware that we have options. Now, sometimes we have options, sometimes it's a bluff,
right.
sometimes it's somewhat real, and sometimes it's very, but that's all fair game.
Right.
Because when I tell a person, an agent representing a seller, and we make an offer and we say, look, we need our answer right now. We need our answer by 5 o'clock today, because we have an appointment at 125 Main Street down the road, and we're going to keep that appointment if we're not under contract. There's certain ways in which we can create where we could use the forces of supply and demand in your favor, whether you're buying or selling.
You can use the same psychology, basically.
Here's the issue, though, and here's the awesome, incredible thing that's available to any home buyer right now, and that if you're a seller and then turning into a home buyer, that you're going to enjoy. We talked up in the previous segment about finding a president that will allow free market to really allow itself to show up. So that was a president that will allow supply and demand to rule. Where that is not currently happening is in the interest rate environment. There is a healthy appetite for mortgages, and the rates are so low.
The rates are so low. Let's not talk about healthy appetite, because there's not a the appetite has gotten a little tainted over the last month or two because of TRID. So I would say if you're buying...
Well, you would say, Todd, that there are people that want to buy a home less so than they would have before because of TRID?
No.
Home buyers don't even know what TRID is.
Correct.
Okay, and when we see... I'm calling it a healthy appetite, because at least that's what I see in my world, because when I see us generating 9 offers on a property in San Marcos, 15 offers on a property in Escondido recently, 3 offers on a townhome that we just had in Hillcrest.
Right.
I see a healthy appetite, yet rates are incredibly low.
Incredibly low.
The Fed has raised rates at their level, yet that hasn't really trickled down to real mortgage rates. And so you have this opportunity to buy a property at a lower interest rate than supply and demand may seem to suggest should be available.
Well, we can give you an example right now. We have a client that we just took an escrow. He was going to pay cash for his property. He was buying a house for $1.5 million, and he's like, "Where are the interest rates at?" We said -4, below 4% on certain products. He's like, he goes, instead of putting cash down, he wrote the offer all cash, and he's doing, he will close all cash if he has to. But he said, you know what, for money being that cheap, I'm going to take out a mortgage. If you can get it closed before my close date, which we will. I mean, that's not a problem. But he wants to take advantage of the low interest rate environment, so he doesn't have to use up all his cash.
And by the time he gets his write-off on his interest,
it's like zero. And
then he has all his capital. As long as he believes he can generate more than, say, 3% with his money, which most people like that would be able to, that's the right move.
So let me ask you a question, Dan. I want to talk about, you make after the break. I want to talk about how you make your money on the buy versus the sale or whatever. Let's talk about that after the break. But one of the questions I have is, when you, as a listing agent, when you get an offer now in this environment that is all cash, is that a bigger deal to you? Or if someone comes in and says, I'm already approved, I don't want a loan contingency, all I want is an appraisal contingency, is that to you the same as cash?
It can be. But there are few agents strategically presenting their offer in a way where they can make a financed offer as appealing as cash. There are ways to do it. Our buyer specialists, Jessica Stample, Brian Danny, they do it.
Right.
Well, in fact, Brian just beat out something like double-figure offers, including cash, and he just beat them out for a buyer that he has. And so let's talk about that as well coming up out of the break, because that's interesting. Now, if your agent and your lender put together the right package, you can be presenting basically a cash offer. I mean, your offer can look as appealing as cash. We're definitely going to talk about that coming up next as well. Hey, we're back with you. This is Real Estate Exposed. I'm Daniel Beer of Windermere Real Estate and the Daniel Beer Group.
Todd Pian and Home Street Bank. Todd and Taisha. You can find us at tntmtg.com anytime you want.
Don't you just love Todd's radio voice? Anytime you want.
I was like Wolf. I should be like Wolfman Jack.
Anytime you want.
Exactly.
Now,
so Dan. So first off, Dan, what do we got coming up? We forgot to talk about it before the break, and I'm super excited about it again.
It's the San Diego home selling workshops are coming up, and the presenters at the San Diego home seller workshops are yours truly, myself, Daniel Beer, and Todd Pianin over here, Home Street Bank. Daniel Beer with the Daniel Beer Group at Windermere. And here's the deal. These workshops, they're for you. They're not where we promote us. They're not where they're just a public service. They're a public service where we lay out the content of everything we know on how to create a strategic home selling process and help you sell your home within 96 hours of going on the market and for top dollar. You're going to learn how to get upwards of $60,000 more on the sale of your home. We're going to talk about home improvements you should do, those you shouldn't do, and why. We're going to touch on staging techniques that could help you net upwards of 12% more on the sale of your home and what you need to know about staging. So there's more to it than just what you see on TV. So we go through that in detail. And most importantly, we're going to deconstruct the home selling process and replace it with a smarter strategy than the methods used by traditional real estate agents. We're going to show you exactly the plan, the process, step by step that we personally implemented on my team to sell 122 homes last year for over $102 million.
Which puts him in that he won't say it out loud, but it's going to put him in the Wall Street Journal top 150 agents in the country. And I'm so proud to say to call you a friend, to actually know somebody that did that. Dan is unbelievable and amazing, and I just want to shout that out.
Appreciate that, Todd. But there's 30,000 or so transactions, real estate transactions in San Diego County over the course of the year. We handled 122 of them last year. There are so many people missing out on a process that can serve them to the highest level. And most of us are getting our real estate advice from our friend John, our Uncle Ernie, our Aunt Sue, or our Grandma Betty.
Or Googling it.
And let's face it, it didn't take a lot of work to get into this business, right? We get our license fairly easily, and we start just selling homes and selling, or trying to, I should say. And the process, for the most part, is simply agents just, taking some pictures, sometimes professionally, sometimes not, slapping them online, and then waiting around for a buyer. You might have already sold your home in the past, or you might be a first-time home seller. In any case, you've probably thought there ought to be a better way and a more strategic process to sell my multi-$100,000 asset, maybe my $1 million asset, depending on your neighborhood. So we literally take you through all of it.
We teach you.
We give you the information
for free.
We give it to you. The workshops take place over the course of 3 days. Now, you don't attend all 3 days. You simply dedicate and invest an hour and a half or so of your time and select which time and location works best for you. We offer the workshop at different locations around the county. They're coming up on February 16th, 17th, and 18th. And we do them at lunch, where we actually provide lunch, and we do them after work. Okay, so there's going to be a time and location convenient to you. If you want to net upwards of $60,000 more on the sale of your home and have it predictably sold within 96 hours of going on the market, call 800-676-2420. The phone number for that is 800-676-2420. We'll send you your free tickets. We'll also enter you, if you share the word LION when you're signing up, we'll enter you into a drawing for a free home staging package. And most importantly, you'll take the information with you, and then you'll do with it as you see fit. If we are in a relationship with you, great. But that's not what the selling workshops are about, and that's not what we talk about. It's all content that you'll take home. It's awesome. It's our favorite thing we do, and we can't wait to see you.
It's really about Dan has this passion, and I have this passion of raising the bar in the real estate industry and basically doing things the right way and versus the old school way. And I have to tell you, this is you have to go. You have to go. It's free. It's not a sales pitch. You don't have to work with either one of us.
There's a reason why KOGO's own George Chamberlain is behind them, endorsing them himself.
I know he loves them. I mean,
he actually attends.
He attends. He comes, and we talk about new stuff all the time.
Todd lays out, and this is the best thing because we have Todd there, and he lays out what the current market opportunity looks like, and then I show you how to take advantage of it.
All I can tell you is our passion is getting real estate agents and getting people to do a better job and actually being more professional and doing things the right way. It's a can't miss.
800-676-2420. That's the number for your free tickets. The phone number is 800-676-2420. And talking about raising the bar, Todd.
Yep.
We've been helping some of our home buyers raise the bar as far as the perception of the strength of their offer when they're competing against all the cash buyers that are out there right now.
Cash. So how are you doing that, Dan?
And that's a big issue, right? So just to take a step back, inventory's so tight. The home selling workshops, they show you how to take advantage of that.
Right.
But now we also work with home buyers.
Right.
And we love home buyers. In fact, about half our business is home buyers and about half of it is sellers. So if you're a buyer out there and maybe you've already experienced submitting an offer, you're qualified, you're ready, your wife, your family's excited, you submit that offer and you get beat. You get beat by a cash buyer. Cash buyer that maybe wasn't even offering as much money as you did.
Right.
And you still got beat.
Because it's cash.
So your agent, or you need to demand from your agent that certain strategies and techniques are used in order to elevate the strength and perception of your offer. One of the things we're doing with the lenders that represent a lot of our buyers, Todd here and Home Street Bank being one of them, we refer business to them and trust them with our clients, and the reason why, they will actually do all of the underwriting in fact, Todd, I'm going to turn this over to you.
Okay.
Share with us, how do you basically package that loan in a way so it resembles cash?
So we take the loan in, we do it as a TBD, which means property to be named later, but we get you completely approved. So there's not even a single condition when you are going to write an offer. And then what we do on that is you can write an offer with no loan contingency because we've already got you completely approved. And so all of Dan's buyer's agents take advantage of this, because what this does for them is this puts them in a strength of power. They can actually write an offer up on a house, especially in this low inventory market, that basically is saying it's the same as cash. Because there's no loan contingency. There's an appraisal contingency, and even on a all-cash deal, there's always appraisal contingencies. So, I mean,
you're helping us turn our offers with our finance buyers into cash buyers, essentially.
Correct.
Why would a home seller even care about a cash buyer? Well, they care because
they're worried about people getting a loan.
They care because there are actually bad things out there that can happen. We've been there where some of the big banks have taken our buyers who did not work with one of the people that we told them that we trust to do a good job, and they worked with one of the big banks to get literally down to the closing table.
After releasing contingencies.
After releasing their contingencies, which if you want to understand more clearly what that means, it means that your initial deposit that you put down, that earnest money deposit, is now at risk, and the big bank comes back and denies the loan. So,
like, what was it after the close date?
Home sellers understand that this kind of stuff happens. It causes all kinds of delays, and because of that, a lot of home sellers are actually accepting offers that aren't even the best offer, but they're cash.
Right.
And buyers are missing out. So by doing what Todd's doing, we're essentially allowing our home buyers to submit offers that resemble cash. We're able to keep them protected with the contingencies that they still do have.
Correct.
Because we understand the ins, the outs, and so on of the contract and how we can protect them yet represent them properly. Plus, there's a reality to the fact that when an offer is being presented by an agent that may or may not have too much experience versus an agent that has a huge track record of success and of closing everything they start, there's also a lot of trust that's built with the listing agent. And so because of that, our own Brian Danny just this past week, he opened, I should say, escrow on a new deal where he beat out multiple cash buyers. He was so pumped up. I mean, you should have seen Brian Danny. He was so pumped up about it. But the reason he did it, Todd, was because of the conversation you and he had and the way you were able to present the offer.
Right.
So that was just super cool.
So let's talk about, before we go out to the break, I want to talk about the Home Seller Seminar one more time. I want you guys to register. They're all across the county. They're going to be in February. And the phone number to call, Dan, is what?
The phone number, if you want your free tickets to the workshop, is 800-676-2420. You can also call that number to connect with Todd and I on anything you want. But the phone number that will get you your free tickets to the home selling workshop while they're still around is 800-676-2420. We're going to be coming up next talking about how you make your money on a real estate transaction. Do you make money when you sell? Or do you make money when you buy? You might be surprised. We'll be back with that. Welcome back to Real Estate Exposed with Daniel Beer and Todd Pianin, and we're going to be talking about when you make your money on a real estate transaction. Is it when you buy or is it when you sell?
So here's my question, Dan. Like I said earlier in the show, we were walking out to our cars after doing the radio show, and you were talking to a client on the phone, as you always are, and I overheard, which I shouldn't have done, but you were telling the client that you actually make your money on a real estate transaction on the buy. So can you explain that to me and all our listeners? Because I always thought you made your money on your sale, because that's when I put the money in my pocket.
Most people think that they make their money when they're selling, right? So they're holding out because they want to make something. Or in this particular case, they need to get moving to where they're going. They've put a bunch of money into their house. They bought when the market was actually at a high point. Mm-hmm. And unbelievably, even though they bought at the peak of the market, during the last peak, even though they bought at that point, sunk a bunch of money into it, they actually made a great buy. And they're not going to be, we ran our 5-day blitz program. They're not going to lose money. But here's the point. What I said to them, which caught your attention, is I said, I was having a tough conversation with these guys. I said, the reality is the equity you have in your property, by the way, this applies to you also, not just the people I was talking to. If you're a homeowner right now, the equity you have in the property is the equity you have. You've already made that money, or you've already lost that money. When you made the money or when you lost the money was when you purchased. When you make money in real estate, when you buy smart or you buy not so smart. You buy with good timing or with bad timing. Maybe it's not a smart and not so smart issue, okay? Because by that, under that theory, then there weren't any smart people in 2005 and 2006 and 2007. Then apparently no one on planet Earth was smart at that time.
Right.
So it's not an intelligence issue. Okay. Sometimes it's just like they say, timing's everything.
Right.
But you make your money on the way in. Talk to a professional investor. They'll tell you the same. A professional investor, when they buy a property, they already know what they made.
Or even when they buy a stock, right? It would be the same thing with a stock. You make your money on the buy because you're buying at the right time.
Absolutely.
In theory.
Stocks are a little bit more clear because you can just log into your account and see how much money you have or don't have.
Right.
And that was based on when you purchased. It's not when you're selling. The reality is that selling a property, the only thing that you're really doing is, there's two things you're doing. One is you're triggering a taxable event. And if you have a gain, you're triggering an event where you're actually going to pay taxes, unless you're going to do a 1031 and move it into a different property. Or
if you get the free $250 if you're a single person,
exactly.
or the free $500 if you're a non-single person.
Exactly.
Right.
If it's a personal residence and
right.
you're married, you have a $500,000 exemption, and we don't like to talk a lot of tax on the show because we are not CPAs. But talk to your CPA about that in more detail. But in any event, theoretically, you're triggering a taxable event. If you're losing money if you're going to lose money when you sell, you're actually going to get some of that back from the government.
Right.
Okay, because you're going to have a tax deduction.
Right.
So that's what's really being triggered. Plus, if you have equity in the property, what you're really doing is choosing to sell and then reallocate that equity into an investment or into a lifestyle that you prefer. But the equity is there. There's not a place for you to log in and see your exact equity the way there is with a stock.
Right.
But the reality is you have that equity right now, or you don't have that equity right now. And when you put yourself into a position to have it or not have it was when you purchased. So that's what we mean. If you want to go into more detail with that, reach out to us. Todd Pianin, Home Street Bank, Daniel Beer Group at Windermere. You can Google either of us, Daniel Beer or Todd Pianin. And we do want to remind you to make sure to get those home selling workshop tickets. They're free. Our favorite attendees always come from this show, but it is advertised all over the county on all kinds of different media, and we want you there.
And I have to tell you, again, like I said, it's an educational platform, and it's a way that Dan and I just want to raise the bar of how real estate is bought and sold in San Diego County. So my suggestion is, again, it's all over the county. It's over a 3-day period. The dates, I think, are 17th, 18th, and 19th of February.
The 16th, 17th, and 18th
of February. All over the county. You have a lunchtime choice. You have a after-work choice. We cover parking, so you don't have to worry about parking. We cover lunch for the lunchtime time. I'm telling you, it's a can't-miss opportunity. And, Dan, what's the telephone number for them to register?
The phone number, if you want your free tickets, we'll send them right out to you. We'll get them out to you immediately. The number's 800-676-2420. If you want to bring a guest, your guest is welcome. Sometimes that guest is a friend, a neighbor, a spouse. Bring your guest. The phone number's 800-676-2420. These are the San Diego home selling workshops where you will learn how to net upwards of $60,000 more on the sale of your house and have that home sold within 96 hours of going on the market.
Don't forget, too, Dan also has his buyer's agents there, so if your guest is thinking about buying a home, it's a great opportunity for them to meet his buyer's agents as well. I am Todd Pianin from Home Street Bank, a member of the FDIC, an equal housing lender, NMLS ID number 304014. Remember, look for us on Facebook, look for us on iTunes. We are going to see you next Sunday, Super Bowl Sunday. Have a great weekend.
On behalf of the Daniel Beer Group and Todd's team at Home Street,
great
enjoy.
Weekend. Enjoy.